The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Welcome back. We're here with Pam Katunar, a financial advisor to learn the basics of investing to make smarter financial decisions. Welcome, Pam. So great to have you on the show as a financial advisor who teaches people the basics of money management.
Great to be here.
How did you get into the profession?
Well, actually, it's interesting, Sybil, because when I was thinking about that, my dad's a bank manager and my mom was a teacher. So I think maybe it's just genetic when I'm doing financial investing.
So you were just born to do this?
Well, maybe not quite, but it feels pretty natural.
So when you're working with clients, where do you think are the big stumbling blocks from an education perspective?
Well, I think one of the things is that this industry, like many industries, has its own jargon. And sometimes that can be a barrier to people understanding what their advisors are even talking about.
You mean not everyone understands what standard deviation and alpha and beta means?
Absolutely. That's exactly a perfect example of the kind of thing that confuses people. And sometimes our industry does a great job of that as well. So to demystify that and just bring it down to some basics, then people can feel more comfortable. It's like dealing with my car. I don't ever want to know how to fix my car or really how it runs, but when I take it in to have it repaired, I need to know if I should be paying $50 or $500 for it. So with that, I just need some basic information.
You don't want to change your own oil?
Never.
No, me neither.
Never.
But you know, actually using that analogy is a good one, because when you think about all the things that a person could know in their lifetime, you can't know it all. But then there's some people who go the other extreme and put their head in the sand and don't want to know anything about investing, and that can be dangerous, even if they're working with a professional.
Absolutely, especially in the low rate environment that we're in nowadays, because you have to know a little bit. Otherwise, if you just, the days of getting 5 or 6% on a guaranteed investment certificate are gone. We're in a low rate environment. People are living for a longer period of time than they've ever lived before. Just because they retired, their money can't. So all of these things, I think it's never been more important to at least get some basic information.
So what are the basic things that you think people should know when it comes to investing?
Well, I think one of the things is just the types of accounts that exist. Just a basic understanding of what is a bond, what is a stock, what does that look like, what are some terms around that, and then I find if people understand those two basic building blocks, then mutual funds start making more sense, because those are the two building blocks.
And when it comes to types of accounts, I know a lot of people do get confused. They think an RSP is a type of investment.
Exactly.
But it's not. How do you explain what an RSP versus a tax-free savings account is?
When I'm explaining that, I say to people, think of those types of accounts as a basket. So you have an RSP basket, you have a TFSA basket, and then what you put in the basket is the different kinds of investments. So you can have guaranteed investment certificates in your basket. You can have stocks in your basket, mutual funds. So think of those types of accounts as baskets that can be moved around, and that there's fees that are going to be charged on those baskets. So that's one of the concepts that I use to try to explain that.
Now, the interest rates are so low and people are being forced in a way to look at other investment vehicles. That's not such a bad thing. But a lot of people feel scared when they hear the word stock. What is your perspective on stocks as it pertains to investing?
Well, I think that for some people, stocks can be fine. In other cases, you know, that is there needs to be some education around that, because it is taking a step. And with this low rate environment, it is forcing people out further on the risk curve. In some cases, that's fine, and in other cases, it's not.
And time horizon's a big part of that, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
So if I'm going to invest in some stocks, I want to make sure I have a long time horizon so I can ride through volatility.
Absolutely.
And not all stocks are created equal.
Not even close. And we want to look at dividend paying, but really the place we need to start with all of this, Sybil, is really what are your goals? Because that is really where you have to start. If you start talking to somebody about an investment before you even know what it's going to be used for or what their money has to do for them, you've got the cart before the horse.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I see a lot of people thinking they're a safe conservative investor. Meanwhile, they've got 20 years before they retire, and they plan to live another 30 or 40 years thereafter. And being stuck in a GIC portfolio will not achieve their goals.
Exactly.
What are some of the risks that investors face if they play it too safe?
Well, you've always got, I always say that the two enemies you have as an investor are taxation You've got to take in consideration fees, but also inflation. So if you are so conservative that you don't want to invest in anything other than GICs, you are very much at risk of your money not keeping up even with inflation, never mind taxation. So those are some huge factors you have to take into consideration.
And longevity, you mentioned that earlier, so people are living longer. How do you see that impacting their financial plans, and what are you doing for your clients to overcome that or plan for longer life expectancy?
Well, I think it's very important that just in terms of a planning perspective that we indicate 90, 95, 100 in terms of financial plans. We don't just start at age 80, because the two fastest growing clubs in Canada right now are those people who are turning 65 and the people that are turning 100. And especially when I'm talking to women, because on average we live around 7 years longer than our
Do we drive our husbands to an early grave?
Most.
Is that what happens?
Yeah. Okay. No, there's all kinds of comments on that I won't even go to.
But we need to plan.
The bottom line is that women do live longer, so we have to take that into consideration. So I don't think there's ever been a time when planning, it's more important than it's ever been, and with that comes education. So getting back to some of the barriers, some of that is just jargon. And I find if we can just establish a base of information for clients, then they've got something to start connecting the dots with. And I find after, whether it's from reading or taking a seminar or participating in some conversations with someone, if you can just establish a base level of knowledge, it's kind of like having a foundation. Then you've got something to add to, but if you don't have that foundation, new information just falls in a hole and it gets all confused. So even something simple like understanding where bulls and bears come from. Where did that terminology come from? That can help.
So where did that terminology come from?
So basically, you got to imagine that, not that long ago, this was even more of a man's world than it is now, right? So the actual the terminology came from the two killing techniques of the animals. So bears come down on their prey and kill, that way.
Oh my gosh.
And a bull will use its horns and throw its prey up. So a bull market is one that's going to be going up, and a bear is one that's going to be going down.
Now, who thinks of these things? It's all crazy. Well, Pam, I think there's a lot to cover, but I think the key takeaways for today was that don't be overwhelmed, learn the basics, and understand enough that you can make smart decisions.
And ask questions.
Thank you for being on the show. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Sybil.
And when we return, learn the do's and don'ts in splitting assets in divorce.